We just press record for those who haven't joined. So what we're going to be doing is today doing a similar session that would cover NCFE Level 2 functional skills in reading. Now, I've got a document that I've just written, a couple of sentences primarily explaining what can be expected, in the reading exam. And it is one of the simplest exams to do when it comes to taking a test. Although, as I mentioned yesterday, it's a test environment, and obviously we need to be prepared, we need to revise. But I think one of the bits in the reading exam is that you don't need to, do any sort of massive preparations for this test because it is like a comprehensional, it's like a test wherein you are given documents or comprehensions, you have to read them, and then obviously after reading the document or the comprehension, you have essentially to answer a few multiple choice short answer questions, not writing more than a sentence consisting of 8 to 10 words, and that would do it. Now, the basic parts that we need to be aware of when we are looking at obviously taking this test is our aim and goal is to obviously achieve the test and pass it in the first sitting. So we need to be aware of what the test involves, what kind of questions can come, and obviously doing a bit of practice would obviously go a long way in ensuring that you are able to sit the test and pass the test in the first instance. So a couple of things in terms of just as signposting markers for you. One, obviously, the English test is reading test is 44 marks in total. There are 4 sections that you can expect to see in the test. 3 of these sections typically tend to be related to uh, getting a document, and then you'll need to read the document and answer these questions. Each of the section is about between 8 to 10 to 12 marks. The reason is there are varying number of questions, and in each of these sections, you'd have some questions which will be multiple choice, some questions which will be questions related to information that you need to find from the document, and some questions will ask you to interpret or essentially look at inferring the information which is given in that comprehension or in that document. And then you have to look at answering some of the questions. So for that, you would need to do a bit of revision. In particular, there are certain parts of the test which typically require the use of, I would say, so here what I would say, some parts of the test and questions require you to use a specific terminology. And the reason I say this is for answering the questions. The reason I say is that there are areas in which you'd be asked questions which you'll read through or the information in the document that is given. But after that, when you do write the answer, you are expected to write and use some very specific words which are related to certain aspects of the test. For example, there could be a few questions on the organizational features of what the how the document is written. There could be 1 or 2 questions on the style of writing which has been used in the document. And if you don't know what is to be mentioned or how to, let's say, decipher the style of writing, the tone of writing of the document, or some of the organizational and textual features which have been used, which I'll explain when we go along in the test, is something that if you do answer, the question, but not use those specific reference material or specific terminology, then in those cases you would not score the marks which are required to be done in those questions. And hence, as a result, your overall score drops below 65%, which is the minimum passing mark to be able to secure a C grade or a 5 grade when you do pass this particular exam. If you revise the topic list which is given on Moodle and do 1 or 2 practice tests, that will give you more confidence to be able to, take the test and pass the test in the first instance. So in this test, again, there is a topic list that we have, and what we've done in the topic list is use that topic list to create what is called the revision material for you to be able to sit the test. So let me just switch you over to the Moodle. And what I would want to do is show you the topic list and where it is on Moodle. So when you log into Moodle, what you have to do is obviously navigate to the NCFE courses and then go into the level 2 reading section of the course. So when you get into the reading section of the course, what you'll basically see is a, a key topic list, which is where we have organized some of the revision material which is required to be read through before you actually take the test. So obviously the journal section of the course has things about, you know, just journal tips, how to prepare for the test, what kind of paper would you expect, things like that. But apart from that, what we've done is in most of the topic list, you would generally see a video, you'd have a presentation, and then after the presentation, you'll have what are called some activities which will allow you to test your knowledge in terms of what you've learned. Now, if you have to go through this material, it should not take you more than 2 hours to go through the entire material because these are short videos of 3, 4, 5 minutes each, and they would focus on explaining some of the key facts in terms of what is required to be understood from the presentation. So they have been created on the basis of the presentations which are primarily given in each of the sections. So, for example, if I say identify implicit and inferred meaning in the text, there's a presentation given here. There are some activities which have been given, and then when you do those activities, you can also check the answer of those activities to help you understand whether you have been able to go through and understand those topics or not, and then how you would use them in the test, or if you were using them in real life, then how these things would matter in terms of when you're reading something as far as English is concerned. Now, if you look at, say, for example, textual features, there are some sections, obviously, which I would point out are going to be more important than the others, is because these sections require the use of specific terminology in the test when you're actually sitting it. So there are 3 sections which I would suggest that you have to must read before you even come into the center for the test. And these are very important because when you read these sections, the key parts in terms of the questions that you will face in the test will definitely come from what is given in the context and the matter as far as the presentations are concerned. Obviously, there will not be the exact questions which are coming, but the pattern of the questions that you will face in the test would exactly be the same. And these are, I would suggest, 3 main areas that you have to look at. One is obviously organizational and textual features, I would combine into one section. Second would be the styles of writing, and third would be analyzing text. Now, I would explain this to you by taking one of the examples when I look at identify different styles of writing. And if you do look at certain, say, types of, let me open this up. Now, when you look at style and tone of writing, say, for example, if I was writing a letter, or if I was writing an email, or I was writing an article, or I was writing a report, the way we write these different types of reports or formats of Word document, we write them in a certain style in terms of writing style, and we also write in terms of using a particular tone of our language when we are writing or conveying something. Now, there are such specific types that we need to be able to be aware of, and those are the ones that you would need to identify in the document and obviously use that terminology to be able to answer that question. So, generally, when you look at styles of writing of document, there are 6 styles: factual, academic, official, instructional, journalistic, and fictional. Now, sometimes during our childhood, what we've seen is I was fond of reading, fiction novels, or if somebody was fond of reading, for example, academic textbooks, there were certain styles in which this data or information are actually compiled into those books, or, say, for example, documents that you were reading. Now, when you look at them, there is a way in which how they are written, And that particular style in which how the articulation of words is done, sentence construction is done, and the tone of voice which is used is very important for you to identify so that you are able to differentiate between different types of documents. So, one of the presentations which I would suggest that you would need to read would be definitely this presentation, which is based on what is called the different styles of writing. The second one that I mentioned to you, was related to features. Now, there are different ways in which you write a document. Sometimes you use conditional formatting, you would use bold, italics, different types of features, headings, columns, paragraphs. You would also use bullet points, for example, lists, and sometimes you create text boxes in the writing of your document because you want to actually differentiate different parts of what you're providing as information in the document so that they are more readable, more, let's say, approachable in terms of drawing attention to your set of readers. So when you look at these as examples, these are what are called features used in the document. Now there can be structural features, there can be language features, there can be visual and graphical features, there can be grammatical features, but they are all helping you define, differentiate, and make your document stand out. So those are specific terminology things that you would have to identify when you do take the exam because there will be questions based on this and it'll say, could you identify the textual features used in the document? Could you identify the organizational features used in the document? Or why has the writer used this feature? And you would need to explain that in your answer in a short sentence. So things like newspaper articles normally look at having headlines, columns, subheadings, and images. Persuasive text tend to have things like rhetorical questions, emotive language, and persuasive techniques in terms of how the meaning of text or what the writer is actually saying is conveyed to the audience. Similarly, you have narrative text, you have informative text, and instructional text. So if you buy a new product, what happens is you also say, for example, a couple of days back, I bought a pair of headphones, and if I look at the pair of headphones, in order for me to understand the product and obviously start using it, they've created a very nice, beautiful guide of a couple of pages, 5 or 6 pages, which is folded into a particular type of, flyer rather than having details on it. And a lot of that is being created using visual, features, which is things like images of the headphones and where are the controls, explaining them using, diagrammatic features like arrows and, let's say, um, use of features which are related to headings, arrows, and columns or tables, essentially saying if you do this, this is what it does. If you do this, this is what it does. Now, those are the manual that I have is actually written in an instructional style to say open the pack, first take off the packaging, then connect it, make sure it is charged, first charged is 100%, and then it is giving you instructions to follow through to be able to use that. So you'd be able to identify these because there will be in the manual very clearly defined tables and instructions which are labeled in terms of bullet points or numbered bullet points to say do this, then do this, then do this, then do this, and then it is installed. So you would be able to understand these if you have gone through some of these presentations to just understand the terminology which is used in terms of what is to be identified, what are the key sets of, what are the key elements in the document that you will pick up, and they would be giving you those tips, or I would say, giving you those, let's put it this way, signs that these are the things and why this document resembles this style of writing. The third part, which I'm going to mention, which is required, so textual and organizational features. The third part, which I would require you to go through, is talking about analyzing text. Now, this area is something which is quite specific simply because sometimes what you need to do is in documents identify things and compare it with what the question or what the writer is actually saying, and then you look at the question and answer that question. So in these cases, when you do look at them in the documents when they are coming, and obviously in the test when they are asked, what you have to do is you have to actually focus on the question, look at finding the answer from the comprehension, and then obviously put it in the way, in terms of put the answer in a way that actually explains what the question or answers the question, what it is being asked for. Now, these features which we look at tend to be identifying whether something has been said in a formal or an informal language. And when you do use formal and informal language, there are lots of ways or connotations in which we can actually express what we are saying. Now, this is where you're going to see things like colloquialism. You look at things like cliches, metaphors, rule of three, synonyms, rhetorical questions, or use of active oblique passive voice, contradictions, writing in third person. Those are kind of things that you will come across which will be required to be used as specific terminology, alliterations. Now, there are a number of them, but what we want to be able to do is go through this presentation to actually familiarize yourself with what they are, how they are used in the document, and why does a writer use them in the document to create a specific impact or a meaning that they want to convey with the text being done to their readers. So things like exaggeration. What are the words which I use? Why do we exaggerate? So, for example, if you exaggerate, that means you're trying to say or share something, but it is being said, the meaning of that thing or situation that you're explaining is being overemphasized, for the purposes of, say, for example, drawing attention. So, in such cases, why do you do exaggeration? So, exaggeration is normally done with the use of adjectives. Things like I'm hungry, I'm very hungry, I'm starving, I'm famished, I'm nervous, old. There are various situations in which you would use exaggeration. And some examples are given here. Then we go into other aspects of it, which are all explained in this particular presentation, which I would suggest that you need to go through in order to understand how using some adjectives, exaggeration, formal, informal language, different types of meanings of words when we say a certain text can be used to ask a rhetorical question, to act as a metaphor, to basically use it as a simile, or in some cases, use it for alliteration. These are bits that you need to know and you should be able to identify in the documents. Now, although the topic list that we have created here tends to cover each of the topic lists. Now, one of the other things which I want to mention, and you need to pay attention, is that this topic list is the list from which all the questions in the rest come. So there'll be some questions which will cover main point of text, which are normally questions carrying 1 or 2 marks, comparing information, textual features, organizational features, and identify style of writing would normally have questions which will carry 3 or 4 marks. Analyzing text, reference material, and implicit and inferred meaning of the text would carry questions in the test which will carry 1 or 2 marks minimum. So the topic list that we have created is based on the type of questions and the priority of questions in terms of their weightage, which is asked in the exam. So going through this list on the Moodle should not take you more than 2 to 3 hours in terms of a sitting that you would want to do, which is a concentrated sitting that you do to go through the text and the material that we provided. But in order for you to be able to start using it and understanding where and how it has to be used, it is very important for you to look at doing some practice tests, because one is reading through it and understanding it theoretically, but the other part is reading through it and putting it into practice, which is where the, I would say, the practice tests come in. So let's look at, say, for example, one of the practice test papers. Now, in reading, you can do 6 practice tests. In writing, you can do 6 practice tests. Some of these practice tests, NCFE has also given you a marking scheme so that when you do finish your test, if you write down your answers on a piece of paper, what you're answering, because there's not much to write, all you have to write is and note down the short sentences that you're writing for the question or the choices that you're making, and then you can later on open the marking swing and compare your answers with what would have been the right answer. So let's look at one of the tests, and this is how you would also have the test at the center. When you come in, you are going to sit on a system which is the NCFE Surpass system, and that is where the test is actually served. Now, when you get into the test, as you would see, essentially the test will have a couple of sections. It'll give you some instructions before you start. And the moment you press start, what will happen is your test time will also start. So in this case, as you can see, the practice test paper, the test paper is about 30 marks, maximum of 30 marks. So there are 4 sections. Each section is about 8 marks. Each section carrying 8 marks, and then the last section wherein you're asked to compare and contrast the 3 different documents that you have seen would be carrying a 7 or 8 marks. So that is how it will make up about 30. So 7 or 8 multiplied by, if you do 7 or 8 marks multiplied by 3 is about 24. The last section is about 6 or 7 marks again, totaling up to about 30. So that's roundabout right, not 44. 44 is the reading test. So the speaking, sorry, the 44 marks is your writing test, and your reading test is 30 marks. Now, if I start the test, as you can see, the sections are labeled on the left-hand side. Now, within each of these sections, there are a number of questions. So we are on section 1, section 2, 3, and 4. And then in each section, there are 5 or 6 questions. Some will have 4, some will have 5, depending on the number of marks which are allocated, to each of these sections. You would normally see number of questions coming up. Now, you can skip between and go through the different sections by clicking your mouse. But just to make sure, you should be aware that the navigation in terms of how you would sit the test would be given on the left-hand side. So when it says section 1, it says section 1 is document 1, covers 9 available marks, and all questions have spaces provided for you to answer. Section 2, as you can see, is 7 marks with about 5 questions. Section 3, 7 marks with 4 questions. And then section 4 with only 2 questions and 7 marks. So as you would see, different sections would have different marks and different number of questions, basis which you need to score and pass each of these sections to be able to overall pass the test. Now, one of the things which some of the learners do, which I would avoid not to do at your end, is that what they look at is, okay, let's look at section 1. It has got 9 marks. I'll do section 1. I'll do section 2. I'll do section 3. And I'll leave the section 4 because I'm very confident that I've done all of them correct. I would be able to then pass the test. No. You have to pass and you have to attempt questions in all the sections. You have to be, getting a minimum score in each of these sections, and then the cumulative score will essentially take you over to the finishing line. So you cannot skip sections. And one of the tips which has been given at the start of the test, before you even press start the test, it says it's a test is 60 minutes or 1 hour. Time your sections in such a way that you are giving 15 minutes to each of these sections, thereby allowing you to not just complete the section, but at the same time doing a bit of quick revision, revisiting, and then going to the next one so that you are confident that you are going to be able to score the maximum marks in each of these sections. So let's start with section 1. And then when you click next, there is a document which will be given, on the first question itself. When you click this document, it will open up as a document which you can drag to left or to right, but it won't allow you to go take the document away from your section. Now, in most cases, when you look at the monitor in the center, the monitor that we have is a 22-inch or a 23-inch monitor. That when you click on it will automatically align, the document on the left and the question will be on the right. But you can also move it around so that you're able to do this adjustment to be able to see the document parallelly and then answer the questions on the right or left, whichever way you prefer. So first things first, what I have to do is I would primarily look at going through this document to understand what the document is actually saying. And then it will at some stage start having some questions that I need to answer. And those would then be coming in from the document itself. Now, the first question reads, which word best describes the tone of style, writing in this document? Now, if I haven't gone through this particular section of analyzing text, I wouldn't be able to understand what is the tone of writing. So, when we do look at the tone of writing, this is something which is very important, because we need to be able to use a specific word when it talks about the tone of writing of the document. So in the document which we look at organizational features or styles of writing, if I remember correctly, there is this particular bit which is covered in terms of tone of writing of the document as well. Now, sometimes when you write and you say something in English, you would have different ways in which you communicate something, and that would essentially decide what you're actually saying. Sometimes we hear the word or the term, he was very harsh to you in the discussions. He was hitting under the belt when he was having this discussion with you. Now, these are ways wherein you are subtly telling the user what was the way in which the other person came across in the conversation. And these are the bits that you need to know. So, styles, tones of writing are sarcastic, polite, optimistic, fun, pessimistic, serious, erratic, consistent, and genius. Now, if you know and identify certain words in the document or the sentences, then you would be able to infer that this style of writing is sarcastic, or this style of writing is polite, optimistic, or different styles. Now, this question here, it talks about which word best describes the tone of writing in the document. So essentially, I would go through this particular document, spend about 5 minutes, and then relate to what's tone of writing, what tone has been used in writing this document. So let's quickly read through. So if you look at what this particular document is saying, it talks about discussing sustainability and what the influencers are doing in this area. Are they genuinely acting, or are they being hypocritical in terms of talking about sustainability? Now, from what I've read in the document and what I can probably go through very quickly, I do feel there are certain words which actually stand out. And these words essentially then would help me relate to what tone of writing has been used in that particular document. Now, there are certain sentences in which we see the tone changing from how they have represented, or what the influencers are essentially talking when they relate to sustainability as a topic. Now, couple of things that come across is the use of these words. So it says multiple van deliveries and trips to recycling center to dispose packaging don't sound so green to me. So basically, what they are saying is multiple trips to the center to dispose of packaging, because if the bin collection lorries, or if bin collection has to be done a number of times, and those trips actually increase the carbon emissions because these lorry trucks are using trips to be able to, obviously collect material and then send it to a recycling center. That doesn't sound, very sustainable form of doing away with waste. That is one. Then the use of words like it's outrageous, according to me. And then the use of words, but the use of word is fine, but they're using exclamation marks in a couple of places. So these are things which you would see they would stand out because it's expressing some sort of disbelief or an opinion which it is very difficult for them as an influencer to understand or comprehend. So, use of exclamation marks and words like outrageous or gigantic, which is an adjective signifying that these things create a very big footprint. And then the other bit which I would also see in most cases is the use of question marks, open-ended questions which the article is actually using. So sometimes when you are very unsure and when you are not very clear and convinced that this is what the person is saying and the person is meaning, then in such cases what it actually implicits or implies to you is that you are not able to believe some of these things quite easily because there are doubts in your mind. So use of, say for example, things like inverted commas in places, if you see. So this is showing disbelief. And if I look at the use of language, in some cases, it's personal or informal language, like I am. If I were to write, something, I would say I and am, if it's a formal way of writing. So there are lots of areas which are areas that I can identify textual features of the document. And from these textual features, I can relate to the fact that these textual features typically signify that disbelief or they are not in agreement. So, in such cases, if I look at the test, I'd probably choose it is not enthusiastic, it is not serious, it is not derogatory, it is disapproving. The text in which the article is written in using words and grammar and punctuation in a way which essentially tells me that the writer itself is disapproving of the idea of sustainability, which is the article talking about. Now, as I would also put one thing across to you, is that you need to also look at how many marks the question carries. So spending appropriate time while doing the test is also important. Now, this is 1 mark. In any case, this is the first section and the first question in this section. I need to go through the document in any case. So I need to spend 5 to 7 minutes because then when I know where things are in the document, it'll be easier for me to find answers. So in any case, what you have to do is in the 15 minutes in each of the sections, you need to actually divide your time to 5 minutes to reading the document so that you are very clear and you know in cases where what is being talked about, at least some of the things would stand out. And then it'll be easier for you to answer these questions as you go along because once I've read the document, I know what it is, talking about. Now, it says identify 2 things the writer has done to have a more sustainable lifestyle. So here, what I would need to do is basically look at similar words which are basically signifying what the writer is actually doing to look at adapting to more sustainable lifestyle. So whatever things the writer has done to make changes to his lifestyle is actually going to come here. So when I say 2 things, I would need to write or copy from what I see in the text in terms of the paragraph. So here, if I look at 2 things, I would want to look at very quickly, finding out what are the 2 things the writer has actually done to make his lifestyle more sustainable. So one of the things I would pick up very quickly would be he's bought. I think there was somewhere he has mentioned that I've bought reusable coffee mugs. So if I have read the document very clearly, what I would also be able to do is, know what I need to find in the document. So let's look at picking that up. So eco products, multiple delivery, that's fine. So here we go. I read that. So I like the suggestion of reusable. So what has she done? She has basically started to use what are called reusable coffee mugs. So I'm going to copy this as it is because I want to save time and I want to bring out answers which are actually from the document. The other thing which I remember is that the person went to some sort of a event. So I want to look at the word event when I read it. Yeah, I can also pick out. I've done my own research and thinking of ways to take up few green suggestions. I'll be supporting the right company, value for money, things like that. So there is two things which a writer has done. These are one. This could be also one of them. But what I want to do is basically look at what she did, and that changed her perspective of, you know, going to a particular, event. So this bit here, I can't find it, so I won't spend too much time, but I will also put this that she's done her own research and is now thinking of taking up some green subscriptions. So these are things which she has done in terms of changing her lifestyle or adapting her lifestyle to becoming making it more sustainable. Now, the other part is the writer of document one implies that Kendrick is self-important. Give one quotation to show this. Now, when you say Kendrick is self-importance, there are words which I identified initially when I mentioned to you. They are being used to show that this Kendrick's footprint or this particular sustainability footprint is very important for me. So most of our posts are important, are informative, and although slight peachy. So this particular quotation for me stands out because it shows that her posts are informative, although they are slightly peachy. That means they're slightly exaggerated, and that is where it clearly signifies that when she writes, she would actually pay a bit of importance by bringing in examples of herself, what she's doing in her lifestyle, to show and to share with our readers. So you have to look at some of these things by reading the document, paying attention to it in the first 5 minutes, reading the document in a way wherein you are able to assimilate most of the meaning of the document, and then it makes it easier for you to essentially, answer the questions. Now, one of the sections in the Moodle, which I'd asked you to go through, is basically looking at implied and implicit and explicit meanings. So this particular section is quite important, and as you can see, this is a question directly related to this section. So it talks about, state what each of the following metaphors mean. Metaphor is something when you're saying something and you mean exactly the opposite as used in document one. Squirreled away. Now, you would have a dictionary in your reading test, but obviously these are phrases for which meanings would not be available in the dictionary. So, what you need to know is what is a metaphor and how it can be conveyed. So, here, what we need to find is the word squirreled away, which is used in this document, and what is the meaning or the inference of the term squirreled away. So, squirreled away means if you think very briefly using common sense, what do squirrels do? They actually find food and they hide it in different places so that when it comes to winters and when they're hibernating, they are then able to basically use that food which has been hidden away from, or basically food which they hide out of sight from their predators. So here, squirreled away means, to the best of my knowledge, the usage of this word or the phrase which has been done in this particular text has been done to say that it has been hidden out of sight. So the word squirreled away, one is actually mentioned. You need to be able to spot and then read the sentence. Her cousin told me what the television crews didn't get to see. Squirreled away in the kitchen drawer was an airline ticket for a weekend trip to the US. And I repeat, a weekend trip to the US, it's outrageous. I wonder how sustainable Kendrick is going to reduce gigantic footprint. So, what it is meaning is it is hidden away or it is something out of sight, right? And that is what you need to mention as far as this is concerned. Now, when you look at a minefield, sometimes when we use English, we use a sentence that, oh, it was a minefield. That means there were lots of things which were unexpected. You didn't expect this to happen, or you didn't expect this question to come. So, minefield in general, is again a word that you would need to find where exactly is the word minefield used. Here it is used. Who knew that sustainability could be such a minefield? That means although I want to prescribe to the idea of being sustainable and using and making things in what I do on a day-to-day basis more sustainable so that I can help preserve the planet, I can help preserve the environment, but sustainability in general as a topic, as an area, is a minefield. That means there are so many things which are very difficult, if I would write, or unexpected of you which need to be done, and that would be something that you will have to mention. If you haven't read this section, identify implicit and inferred meanings in the text, there will be no way that you'll be able to score these 2 marks in the test when it comes. Now, it says, give me identify one fact and one opinion. Now, there are a number of facts in this document, things which are basically using numbers or, things which are basically stated as sentences which are stating information using numbers, fact, figures are essentially going to be fact. And opinions are going to be things which are going to be, uh, personal thoughts. So it is very easy for you to spot opinions because it will exaggerate to a certain extent, or it will be very personal in terms of what I am meaning to say in the document. So one of the things that I can quickly look at is most of our posts were informative though slightly peachy. That is an opinion, and that would be because it is expressing somebody's own idea of what they actually mean. Now, there are various places in which she has used and given her opinion. So, obviously, there are lots of them that you can actually, spot. One of the other bits that we looked at in terms of exclamation marks is it's outrageous. That is also an opinion. You know, that, okay, I've stashed away a ticket in the kitchen drawer. I'm going out for a weekend trip to attend say, for example, whatever it is. But for me, it's a bit outrageous because if on one side you're talking that I want to reduce my footprint, and the other side you're taking a weekend flight or a weekend trip, which is taking a flight and taking you to a different city, which creates a large footprint in terms of carbon emissions. So my opinion is it's outrageous. So this is also showing an opinion. That is where the first reading of the document is very important because it allows you to identify and read and understand what the document is actually saying. So it will make it easier for you to spot things. Now, when we look at facts, one of the facts is it says somewhere I've done my research. This is a fact that she has spent time and she's done her research. Now, I can also look at other areas wherein I can pick out facts is that she's got a number of social media influencers. Now, for example, when we say that she's got a number of social media influencers, this is also a fact because it is that she has some social media influencers, and that is known, and that can be verified by looking at her account, say for example Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is. I'm just assuming, but this is a fact. So you need to identify one fact, one opinion, and that would essentially do this question. Now, we are on the sixth or the last question of this particular document. It says, Give one quotation to support this. Now, what is that quotation? The writer implies some eco products are not sustainable. Now, there are a number of ways in which, lots of things have been actually mentioned in the document by her, wherein she says that being eco-friendly or having sustainability in all aspects of working life is not actually possible. One of the things which I can spot out clearly is the multiple van deliveries and the trips to the recycling center to dispose of packaging doesn't sound very green to me. So all I need to do is just pick it up and put it here because, this is not showing that sustainability is easy to manage. You know, councils are having to pick up bins on different days. So one day they pick up blue bin, one day they pick up green, one day they pick up brown, and on one of the days they pick up the gray bins. So if you look at, there are 4 deliveries that they are doing to be able to pick bins, just because they are sorted. But at the end of the day, this sorting can also be done in the sorting center. They can have one huge bin per household, and that collection could be done once a day, and that would allow them to do multiple trips. So, in a way, this basically shows that maintaining sustainability as a concept sometimes becomes difficult because you are having to pick up multiple van deliveries, for the same disposal of rubbish or for recycling. Now that completes section 1. I move on to clicking next. It'll take you to section 2, and there'll be a different document which will come up here. Now, this document, again, you need to spend 5 minutes. This particular section is 7 marks as against 9. There is one less question, but the same pattern. But we are not going to go through all the questions, but what you're going to see in this particular document is that this document is slightly different. What we need to be able to identify is what kind of document is this, right? It says make your own cleaning products, furniture, wood polish, ingredients, glass. So this document seems to be like a more instructional document. And if you look at section 1, and in section 1, if you look at that document, this document looks like more of a journalist article because there's a broad heading on the top. It says by Devon Anderson, and then there are the flow of what the information is being provided is organized in paragraphs. As you can see, 1 paragraph, 2 paragraph, 3 and 4. There is some use of imagery along with the headlines to draw attention. This is one of the textual features. So if I have to identify what are the textual features in this document, is what I would say is, okay, it uses what is called headings. It uses images. The organization of the text has been done in paragraphs. The writing style is informal because in some places you'll see it uses a little bit of informal language. I'm not sure, I'm supporting. There is use of exclamation marks. There is inverted commas in places which you see. So this style of writing is informal. The tone, I would say the style of writing is informal. The tone is also, let's say what I would use the word, again, the way I would describe the tone, conversational. Conversational is a word that you would only get if you go through the, textual features presentation, because what you need to be able to identify in the document is how the writer is coming across in terms of their writing style and then the conversation that they are having or how they are conveying the information to you. So the use of words like I am not sure, I am supporting is conversational because they're trying to relate it, they're trying to make it use informal English and trying to be more, approachable in terms of having that conversation with you about this concept of sustainable influences. So these are the organizational and textual features that you need to be able to pick out when you see the document. Now, when we go to section 2, again, what we need to be able to do is pick out some of these organizational and textual features because I know in the last section of the test, in the reading test, it'll always ask you to compare and contrast 2 documents. So it'll say compare the views of Jenny in document 3 with views expressed in document 1, giving examples, identify textual features, the purpose of writing this text. And in the second part, It'll say analyze all the three documents for evidence of bias, explain which document is least biased. In your answer, you should consider language, purpose, bias, giving examples from the text. Now, there are only 2 questions, but these are 7 marks. So you need to be able to score and write the exact words, use the exact words which are given and asked for in the text or in the questions essentially from the text identified in the document. And until unless you've revised textual features, organizational features, different styles of writing, how to infer explicit and implicit meaning of the text, there will be no way that you'll be able to use those exact words and terminology to be able to score marks in the in this particular section. So the second document that we see essentially seems to be written in an instructional style, very clearly use of clear bullet points and then asking you to follow the instructions. So this particular style of writing of document is instructional. It is asking you to follow it through, and that would then give you the results, what they are predicting would be when you follow the instructions. So according to Documentum, approximately what percentage of people make use of home cleaning products? So 20% of estimated British population makes use of home cleaning products. So simple question, simple answer, provided I've read the document. And sometimes you would see that some of these things actually stand out. You know, it is estimated 20% of British population already makes use of household cleaning products. Question done, answer done, and it is correct. Which section tells the reader how to make a spray for most surfaces? So make your own cleaning products, all-purpose sprays. That's the section which is telling you how you can make sprays, for most of the surfaces that you look at, on your side. What word does the buff mean? Word buff mean as it used in green glass cleaner section? You may use the dictionary. Now, here we provide you a dictionary. You have to use the dictionary meaning and write exactly what it means from the dictionary without adding anything from your side. So whatever the meaning of the word buff is, you need to be able to see a dictionary, find the word buff in the dictionary, and in this context of what we are using needs to be put up here as a meaning of what it says in the glass cleaner section. So it has given you a very clear clue that the word buff is actually used in this section. Then buff with the dry side of the cloth. And what does that mean will be from the dictionary. It's a very simple 1 mark that you'll be able to get by copying the exact meaning of the word buff, which has been explained in the dictionary, and putting it in this box. Now, one of the things that you also would need to realize in the reading test is there is the size of this box which has been created in each of the questions that you do. That tells you also subtly that this is the amount of text I need to write in order to get my marks in the question. If it is a small box, you would generally write only 1 sentence. If it is a big box, like this is a small box, 1 sentence only. If I go back to the previous one, this was a bigger box. It says give 2 reasons. You would automatically see 2 marks. That means I need to write at least 2 sentences. That would give me the marks which are required, to achieve this particular question. Some of the questions are going to be very simple because they are multiple choice. So you have to read this particular document and then answer whether the text is descriptive or informative. Now, again, this will come from the style of document or the way it has been written in the organizational features of the document presentation, where it will tell you whether the feature is descriptive, persuasive, is it factual, is it academic, and that is what you need to decipher. So if you don't go through the sections that we have provided, there are these specific terminology which I've mentioned so many times. You won't be able to answer these questions correctly. So research has found more than 50% of the off-the-shelf products, household cleaning, contain ingredients harmful to your health. Now, is it descriptive or informative? It is informative. Now you're ready to enjoy the healthy, beautiful, smart cleaning furniture and floors. This is going to be descriptive. So the other way around, this is descriptive and this is informative. So what you need to be able to do is primarily understand very clearly that this part, when it says research, I was right, it is informative because this is saying research has found. And then this part is basically making a cliched statement here that when you look at this particular section now that you're ready to use, is because you're in the conclusion part of the document and where it is saying that, this is something that you need to do to be able to do so. And again, you're easily scoring 2 marks because you're aware of identifying what this text is and how and why this text is and what meaning this text is actually conveying. Now, similarly, you have a third document. What you're going to see first and foremost visually in the documents is that there are different styles of document which have been used. So if I were to look at document 3, first clue that I get is it's a website document, or it is a website or a blog. The second document was an informative article or a document or a flyer wherein it was giving instructions to be able to use, homemade cleaning products. And the first one was a journalistic style article because it was from a newspaper or because there were things like headings, visual imagery, written by those things give away that it was a journalist article. Here, what is giving away is the sections of the website about order new products, ingredients in terms of website link here. Plus, it also tells me this is an electronic form of document. And the second one was a flyer because it was mostly instructions. Either it comes as a flyer dropped into your house, comes in as instructions that you would normally have a printed flyer. And essentially, it was an instructional document because it was giving a lot of instructions straight up front saying, do this, follow this. And that is how you'd be able to get clean products or, clean environment in your house. Now, if you see in the reading test towards the end of the section, last section, we'll ask you to compare and contrast. So what the NCFE as an awarding organization has done has already given you 3 documents which are easy for you to identify if you pick up some of these clues that I've mentioned to you. So here, if you see how websites are designed and websites give information, their information is normally organized in a very clear, concise manner. And the information is normally supported by use of various types of textual features, things like bold headings, numbered bullet points, you would see imagery, footnotes, and in some cases, the organization of information that you are able to click and go through from one section to the other in a way which allows easy navigation. So these are things which are things that you would need to go through. One, through the topic list. Second, by going through 1 or 2 practice test papers, because these are things which are going to be across all the test papers. Whether I pick out a second practice test, a third one, or fourth one, or when you come and do an actual test in the center, they will have these 3 exact types of articles which will come. They might change an email or this website to a forum. They might change the instructional flyer to a report, a research report, but a journalist article would always remain a journalist article, or it will become, say, a factual report, which is normally published by a council or by an organization, but it will be something related to that, wherein you would normally see um, text being given out, which will essentially be, like in an article kind of a format. So when you're aware of these things, your way of approaching the test becomes, quite confident, and you are quite concise and clear in terms of what is expected in the test. Now, if I look at briefly the document 3, it says the customers get their money back. What must the customer do to receive a full refund? Now, if I look at not even going through some of the article, it says money back guarantee. That means at any given stage, this question straight away relates to the fact that, there is a full refund possible. But when I look at real life situations, normally refunds are done in 14 days, 28 days, 30 days. So what I would need to do is obviously read this particular article and talk and pick out a sentence which says what the customer needs to do. So here, money back guarantee stands out. It says if within 30 days of receipt of a product you are not totally satisfied, you may return the product to receive a full refund. You must pay the cost of return postage. So essentially here what I would need to do is, in order for the customer to return the product and get a full refund, that is what they need to be able to do. So what I'm going to do is put this and paste it here. And as you would see, what I've written and pasted, I don't need to even type. I've just copied the text as it is. And that is why I say the reading test is the most simplest form of test to do, because I'm not having to write much of it in the test itself. I'm just, if I read the documents carefully, I'm able to pick out the answers from there itself. It says, what does the writer imply about cleaning products in each of these quotations? Harness the power of nature. Now, this is where the inference comes in. So what I would need to do is, where is the harness of power to nature appearing in this particular section of the website, and what does it mean? Now, here it means that if you are, because what they're doing is they're creating these um, cleaning products using nature. So there would be a sentence somewhere in this particular article which will say that the products are created through natural ingredients or something of that sort. I'm just guessing here because I haven't read the article, and that is why they are emphasizing that they are as powerful as what would be the products manufactured in the factory. So we need to be able to pick out a sentence which will essentially be very close to what they are inferring or asking us to look at from the document. And that would be something that you would need to look at, picking out by reading this particular document which has been given. So if I just take a minute and look at what it means, harness the power of nature. Harness the power of nature. So that means most of these products are completely natural or essentially do not have any chemicals. So there are some words that I need to pick out which will actually be conveying what they are asking. So here they would be made out of ocean friendly, reusable bottles. Let's look at they are natural or something of that sort that would essentially specify this. Can you spot something on the document which stands out and relates to the power of nature? Okay. So here I would say the harness the power of nature. Here I would say the writer implies that the are products are made out of natural materials or ingredients. This is a game changer. So here, what I would say is, okay, there is a use of word called eco-friendly somewhere I've read, planet-friendly, eco-friendly, and that is where it's a game changer. Is so if the customers use these products, they will be more eco-friendly. And that is what it means. So there is a use where obviously it is saying the product's 100% non-toxic, biodegradable, and obviously they are good to the environment. So this would answer this part of the question. Now, in this bit, again, specific terminology. Why is a numbered list used? Why is there a special display box? Where is the special display box? This is a display box which has been used, and numbered list has been used here. So you need to know the exact reason of why these are used in the document. They will come across from textual features. So when I say numbered list, it is normally to give clear instructions to follow, right? And here it is done clear instructions to follow on how to use the products. It's very clear. It says our formulas are super concentrated, open the bottle, empty the refill, fill the bottle, recycle the pouch. Now, special display, which is this. Why is this being used? Now, display boxes are essentially, again, organizational features or textual features which I use in the document. And this is done normally to highlight the information or in highlight the information. In this document, it is done to show the benefits of ocean clean products. So what they've done is, in a way, summarized everything, what they've written in words here, that our products are refillable, they are planet friendly, they are ocean kind, they're non-toxic, carbon neutral, guaranteed satisfaction. So what they've done is they've drawn attention to what the key bits of the information they are providing by putting them together in terms of visual items, diagrammatic ways of putting it across by images, and then putting it into a box which makes it stand out, from the other text in the document. And that would answer that question. So you would need to look at going through some bits of it and then look at answering some of these questions. Now, what it is asking you to do is the last section is very important because it is asking you to look at the three documents for evidence of bias and explain which document is least biased. This is where you are able to put your own thoughts in, but you have to use the information given in the documents to justify why do you think the document is least biased. So first and foremost, what I would need to do is, if you see the size of the box, there is at least 8 to 10 sentences to write. So what you have to do is you have to quickly read the documents, and from what you have read and summarized and understanding of your document, you need to be able to, put this here. And the context that you're putting it here in terms of summarizing would be the bits which are important. One, why is which document according to you is least biased? And then in that least biasness that you're identifying, you're actually looking at language purpose and examples of what text are showing why this document is not biased, is what you're going to put across in this particular document. So this is document 1 that I've opened, quickly refreshing, document 2 and document 3. Now, if I was to look at document 1, it is a journalist article. Document 2, it's an instructional flyer. And document 3, it is a website in which the company is writing about their own product. Okay. And in such cases, what you have to look at is that you have to see and interpret which document is least biased. So according to me, and this is where your personal opinion comes in, according to me, this document of how to make your own cleaning products is maybe the least biased because it will consider giving you some instructions. It will tell you what are the benefits, but to a certain extent, it will also overemphasize in terms of doing these things in a way wherein they want to promote, their message. But it's done in a very neutral, in a very casual manner. So I would say, according to me, document 2 is the least biased document. This is because now what I need to be able to do is identify a couple of points. And these couple of points that I'm going to identify is the language used in the document is instructional style. The purpose of the document is to make the general public aware of how to make your own cleaning products. And the third part is there is very little bias in the document because of the use of words and phrases like. So what I would want to do is give out one or two examples, and these one or two examples would actually come out, from the document. So, for example, phrases which are not showing any bias. They are not trying to promote a company or a particular product or a particular, solution. They are making you what you are going to be looking at is picking out sentences which actually show the use of certain text features which are not promoting any bias. So, for example, there is a quote from research that 20% of the British population already makes their own household cleaning products. So, this is the use of research and statistics to convey exact information rather than making things up. Right, this is one example. You can pick out another example, and that would be, something that can show that there is no bias because there is use of statistics here, and that is coming from research. It is not made up statistics, it is coming from research. So this shows that this document is not biased. Now, what I've done is I also need to do in this particular bit is document 1 and put some bits about document 3. The reason I say this is because I need to compare the three documents. Analyze means I need to look at all the three. If I just write about document 2 and say why this is not least biased or it's least biased, I would probably not get 4 marks. I'll probably get 1 mark or 2 marks. So I need to write a few things about the same in terms of other documents as well. So I would say, again, copy this text in order for me to save time in terms of writing. But I will change this. The language used this in this particular document is journalistic style, right? The purpose of this document is the purpose is to change, is to talk about influencers promoting sustainable lifestyle. Now, there is some bias in this document because of the use of words and phrases. And what I would do is pick out one or two examples. So here, most of our posts are informative, but although they are, peachy as well. So what I would do is pick this up. Most of her posts are informative, though slightly preachy. Okay, there is another one that I can pick out. The use of phrases like it's outrageous, then another one, don't sound so green to me. This is showing personal opinion. So the use of phrases like it's outrageous, don't sound green to me shows personal opinion, which can create bias in the minds of the readers. So you're justifying what you're writing. And in document 3, if I look at, I would say this is a descriptive style. This is so the purpose of this document, descriptive. This document, the language used in this document is script style. It is a website. Okay, so the purpose of this document, the purpose of the website is to promote the company's products to companies by highlighting and talking about the benefits of ocean clean products. Now, the reason I say this document is going to be the most biased document because it's a website, and as a company, it's only talking about the benefits of it. There is no negative or the drawbacks highlighted, and obviously they've used customer reviews, testimonials essentially to promote what they are presenting on the website. They are also backing it up with a money back guarantee. They're asking you to subscribe. So there are lots of ways in which they are talking to you directly. They are asking you to do an action. They are only promoting some of the benefits of it. There is no downside of it, which has been talked about in this particular, in this particular art document. This is the most biased document. And what you would do is essentially, put out some of these things here. The use of customer review to make it more convincing and make it more believable, for example. Those are things, examples that you can pick out, and that would allow you to address this section. But this section would require some time at your end to be able to complete. And once you have done the review, you still have got a couple of minutes. What you can do is go back to review any question if you have not answered, or for example, it has not been, you were not sure about it. You can revisit that. And once you've done it, you click on finish test and you finish the test. And obviously, then in this case, the test would get submitted and we'll get a result from the NCFE in about 7 working days, essentially. So that's how you would look at approaching the reading part of the test. That is what I would suggest is to just to summarize, go through the topic list first to ensure that you are aware of some of the meanings and the key terminology which is required to be used in the test. Familiarize yourself with the pattern of the test in terms of what kind of sections will come, what could be the suggested questions and sections that you will get in the test, what is the marking scheme. There are certain questions which you would definitely be scoring marks on because they would be multiple choice questions, the use of dictionary. So those are easy marks to get. But my suggestion would be to read the documents which come carefully, read it once, spend about 5 minutes on it so that you don't need to revisit them for reading and you know exactly which part of the text or where the exact information is actually appearing in that document so that when you start answering the questions, it's easier for you to spot those answers or areas from which these areas or sections in the document from which the answers would come. And again, the reason I say this is the most easy part of your English test is because there's very little writing. You only have to do the writing in the last section of the test, and rest of it is copy and paste from the documents itself to be able to get to answers. So with this, it brings us to the end of this session, slightly longer from yesterday, but I hope this has been useful and informative. What I would suggest you to do is, while you're fresh with it, go through the topic list on Moodle, then at some stage do at least 2 or 3 practice tests to build up speed and obviously understand what kind of documents and questions are asked, but they're all going to be related to the topic list, and that would help you sit and pass the test in the first instance. Any questions at this stage? Any questions, anybody? Okay, good stuff. So if everything is understood, everything is good, then I would like to end the session here. And hopefully, what I would suggest you to do is go into and revisit some of the recordings and the topic list and then call us to start to book your reading and writing test, in the subsequent weeks, so that you can come in and do the test at the center. So for bookings, you need to call, either Ritika or Michael. And if any both of them are not available by any chance, then you can also speak to Aman, and you can book the test from 9:30 a.m. in the morning to 4 p.m. in the afternoon, because the test is 1 hour. If you're coming in for reading and writing, then I would say the last booking slot would be 3 p.m. on that day, because if you're looking at doing reading 1 hour, writing 1 hour, and obviously we close, at 5. So to Monday to Friday, any day which is suitable, any time which is suitable, you can call in and obviously, book your test with us at the test center. So with this, I would like to end the session, and hopefully I hope you would have found this useful and productive. And now you know how to go about approaching, the preparation for both reading and writing parts of the test. And this will hopefully allow you to, complete the English with us as soon as possible. Take care, enjoy the rest of your day, and bye for now.